My name is Digger, and I come from another planet, and I have invaded your country, your states, your cities. We're all over the world now. That is how I start Aliens from Outer Space program, which is a program on the Bill of Rights. Teacher doesn't introduce me, I literally just burst into the 5th or 6th grade classroom. The visitor from outer space is in your packet, and I go through a little bit the little speech that's in there about how we've taken over the country and about how you're going to start losing your rights, that the students will start losing rights that were given to them by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and that I'm going to let them fight, and I'm going to have them give up 5. And after that, then we go through a discussion and we talk about the Constitution. This program is usually presented to 5th and 6th grade students. So they're studying government. They may have already started on the Constitution. They may have already finished it. And then also the Bill of Rights. Now, we don't go through all of them. The Visitor from Outer Space has a list of 10. And that's the same list that I use. It can be done several ways. I generally break the class. Well, I talk.
Can you grab that mic for me? Thanks.
I am so sorry.
That's
That's
all right.
going to goof up the whole presentation.
I can save it.
It's not all of the Bill of Rights, but it's selected ones. And I have generally called the teacher before I get to the classroom and let her know that I'm going to break the class into groups of 4 or 5. We talk about, before they break up, each of those 10 rights, and we discuss what they mean. What does the right against self-incrimination mean? What does the right to bear arms mean? What does the right to legal representation mean? And then I break them up and they number those. I brought little printouts, 1 through 10. 1 through 5 being the rights, the 5 rights they want to keep the most, and then 6 through 10 being the rights that they want to give up. And they work in groups together, and you have to, I walk around the classroom, and so does the teacher, and we answer questions. And the group has to reach a consensus also. And sometimes one thinks, well, I want to give up this one and I want to keep that one. And so they have to work it out and give me an actual list from your group of 4 or 5 students. And then we very quickly do a little tally on the board, kind of how many votes, and we end up with 5 that are going to be gone and 5 rights that will stay. Amazingly, or maybe not amazingly, the right to legal representation is almost always one of the bottom 5. Another one, though, that kind of surprises me is that it's one of the bottom 5 is the right to assemble. And I really take this very far with them when we talk about the effect that giving up that right has. I start out and I go, school. We're not going to have school anymore because you can't assemble. And they go, yay! And then I go, and there are no more sporting events. There's no more baseball, there's no more basketball, there's no more football, there's no more movies because you can't get together in a place. You gave that up. So I stretch it a little bit, but they start getting the idea that maybe there's more to these rights than they've ever thought about before. And the right to legal representation they almost always give up. The right to self-incrimination they almost always give up also. And so I go through and I just turn to one of them and I go, you ate my lunch. And they go, no, I didn't do it. I go, yes, you did. And they go, well, no, I didn't. And I go, well, we're just going to cut you open because I know my lunch is in there. And they go, well, you can't do that. And I said, well, you gave up the right to self-incrimination. You gave up the right to legal representation. So I would do whatever I want to do. So they always generally keep freedom of religion. And so we talk about that they can do that in their homes now, but they can't go to church because they give up the right to peaceful assembly. And we talk that that's not exactly the meaning of it, but it really gives them the idea about some of these rights and how they interact and their freedoms. Then at the end of the session, we kind of wrap it all up and let them tell me what they think. If there's additional time, I take questions from the class because they always have questions. I preface that with your questions should not be about your family. Don't tell me stories about your family. Don't tell me stories about neighbors, anything like that. I used to say don't give me any personal experiences, but sometimes they don't know what personal experiences are. So you have to make sure that you say, don't tell me about what goes on in your house or in your neighborhood. And we try to go through what is a lawyer, what kind of education do you have to have? What do you think lawyers, attorneys do? And that's always very interesting. You almost always get the question, how much do you make? I never answer that. I say attorneys, some attorneys make less than your teachers, and some attorneys make more. And that pretty well, solves that. And the same thing about, well, what kind of car do you drive? If I'm an attorney, can I drive a such and such car? You generally get one of those. And I just say, people drive whatever kinds of cars, get them from one place to the next. So, but it's very fun. I try to interact. I try to not stand in one spot. I try to move around the classroom and to interact and let them interact with me. I think this is usually a good little opening. Rick Gorelowitz actually has a whole alien costume that's long and flowing, and he comes into the classroom that same way and keeps it on during the presentation. I will tell you that I've had one student in one class that thought it was real, a little fifth grader. So literally almost panicked. So watch the class, see if anyone is stressing out in the class, because they were really wondering if it was true. And so we had to kind of calm them down and stop and say, no, this is just like an act. But it's great fun. Hope you enjoy going into the classroom. And there are 1,000 ways to do this presentation, Visitors from Outer Space, and every presentation. I've had teachers on one that is respecting people's rights, and I've had teachers actually, I just met with them right before playing the part, one that was a tap dancer dancing on the apartment above somebody who was trying to sleep. And they came up and they pounded on the door and would ask them to stop, and then they would go lay back down and go to sleep, and the person would tap dance, and they had all this interaction. And then we talked about the rights of, the individuals in connection with one of the lessons. So anything that you can think of to be creative, to make it interesting for the children, I think really helps to get the point across. Thank you.
Good morning. So glad that you're here. Is this on? My name is Jane McConnell. I'm the Law Related Education Coordinator, and unfortunately Suzanne Heggie, that was going to give a very quick welcome, her day job kept her at her job, so she'll be here later and visit with you hopefully before our program ends today. At this time I'm going to go ahead and ask Michael Wofford to come up and talk to you. He was the chair of our subcommittee, and the committee that just kept going and going and going until we got to today, and we're very excited with the end product.
Hi, I'm Mike Wofford. I'm an attorney here in Oklahoma City. And when I first joined the Law-Related Education Committee of the State Bar, I thought we probably had an Attorneys in the Classroom program in Oklahoma. Turns out that Oklahoma County and a few other counties did, but there was not a statewide program. And so during the course of my service, we started to develop as a part of the Law-Related Education program of the State Bar an Attorneys in the Classroom program. The idea is to allow counties to use our resources to facilitate getting attorneys into primary and secondary education classrooms throughout the state. What are the reasons for this? There are basically two. And in fact, as our committee began to develop the program, we had advocates for two different kinds of purposes in this. One was, of course, just adjunct to the faculty of the high school or junior high to allow attorneys to help by educating students, intriguing them, hopefully giving them some on-the-ground experience from attorneys about our democracy and how the courts work and what attorneys do. So basically teach. But there were a number of people on the committee who also were concerned that lawyers generally have maybe not the best, for a variety of reasons that are not always the lawyer's fault, don't necessarily have the best PR going for them. A lot of people perceive lawyers as being people who are leeches, who sort of rob from society, who start disputes in order to have cases to deal with and so forth. We need to dispel that by showing people what lawyers actually do to help people. And so much of the committee was really concerned that the program largely emphasized the role of attorneys in society and how they actually benefit society. A bit of PR, you might say, for the bar. Well, the good news about that is if you do the first, you definitely accomplish the second. Anyone who goes into a classroom and helps the teachers, anyone who goes into a school and brings to life the law, the history of the law, the way our courts work, is automatically going to be kind of if you want to say it, a hero to those, not only the kids, but the teachers. And that's been my experience. When I've gone into the classroom to teach from a legal perspective, American history, political science, how the courts work, how lawyers work, I have always found that if done right, and I hope I've done it right a few times, we get appreciated automatically. So there is no need for a lawyer's public relations program in this. If we do our job right and we do the job in a way that the teachers appreciate and do the job in the way that the kids are learn something and are intrigued by it, we automatically make the legal profession look a lot better than some people perceive it to be. I was in Bartlesville. I was asked to, just a couple of weeks ago, teach at the Wesleyan School, sophomores in civics class. And I take a little bit different approach to the way I teach than maybe Doneen. And I'd like to sit in on Doneen's teaching sometime. Although we just got a taste of how that's done, I'd like to sit in on that and learn from her experience. Believe it or not, what I do is I teach case law. And that sounds kind of dry. But if you teach it as it is taught, hopefully by really good law professors in law school, it can come to life for the students, at least at the secondary level. And I found that to be the case. In Bartlesville 2 weeks ago, I taught what some people would consider some of the driest case law you ever would find. But what you do is you do like a good law professor, you teach it from the standpoint of the facts. How is this case really impacting people and people that they might know? How does it impact their family? How does it impact their friends? And how does it impact them and their teacher and others they know? You can take some of the driest case law, and unfortunately some people teach case law from the standpoint of the result. Well, here's what right you lost or what right you gained, or here's what happened. But if you start off by teaching it from the standpoint of the facts, that these are real people who really did have a real problem, and lawyers and judges were able to really help them get through a problem, most of the time you can work it so that the students really identify with it. And I found that always to be the case. The number one thing that anyone does who goes into the classroom, though, I strongly believe, first of all, I have to tell you, I really like practicing law, and I really like lawyers. I love hanging around lawyers and judges because I find them to be people of broad experience who have interesting backgrounds and something good to say. The same applies when you go into the classroom. The number one rule is you got to go into the classroom as a lawyer with the idea of having fun. If you're not having fun, I guarantee the teacher isn't having fun and the kids aren't having fun. That's why I appreciate so much how Deneen approaches this. And the other thing is you have to teach the students a little bit in the way that it has been proven that students respond to teaching. You have to look them in the eye. You have to spend as much one-on-one time with them as you can. You have to let them somewhat drive the curriculum by asking questions. These are not formal presentations. It's real interaction with the students. Now, what we did as a committee is we selected 5 counties in Oklahoma to kind of do a pilot program on this program. We are very gratified that a number of the counties have already initiated Attorneys in the Classroom program, and we're working with others that hopefully soon will. I see this program as being the kind of thing that doesn't happen overnight. Many of the rural counties and bar associations do not have the resources necessarily to implement a program like this. They may only have 1 or 2 counties, even in the county seat, in some of our rural counties. And so it's incumbent upon the State Bar Association, if we want to really help people get attorneys into the classroom, that we provide a number of resources that they can call upon, both on the net and in hard copy. And you'll be hearing about some of that today. So welcome to the program, and I hope you'll get a lot out of it. And for those of you who are seeing this online, I hope you'll get a lot out of it. And we hope to make this as a successful program and rely on largely people who have already done it in places like Oklahoma County. But also, again, the key thing to this is it needs to be driven from the county up, from grassroots, because each program has to be tailored to that county's needs. Thank you for coming. I look forward to working with you today.
Good morning. My name is Pam Bennett. I'm with the Oklahoma County Bar Association, and I am the coordinator for the Oklahoma County Lawyers in the Classroom program. We have about 100 volunteers or so. Our program has been in existence 20 years or so, and we usually go to all of the Oklahoma County schools and some of the surrounding areas as well. So we have a good program too. If you ever have any questions, you can always contact me as well. I think I have contact information on there. I would also like to introduce right now our chair, and his name is Richard Parr, and he is going to come talk to us about the legal guide for young adults.
Well, thank you, Pam. And as Pam said, my name is Richard Parr. I'm the current chairman of the Law-Related Education Committee for the Oklahoma County Bar Association. You've heard both Deneen and Michael today give some very helpful tips about what works and what doesn't work in the classroom. Particularly last time, Michael and Deneen, as you talked about the value of being interactive with the students. But I don't think I can emphasize that enough. Because if we just sit up there and talk and go through things and you don't have any audience participation, it's no different than a lot of times any of us will go to CLEs. If there's no audience participation, natural tendency is to look down at your phone, see what everyone else is doing, walk out, go to the bathroom. Well, imagine being 16 or 17 or 18 years old. Those the temptation to do that is even greater than those of us over 30, 40, or 50, and who can be bad at it too. So the number one thing that I always like to do as far as a tip, we always hand out this book. It's a guide. It's very extensive, talks about all the rights and responsibilities that you have when you turn 18. The number one rule of good presentation, I think, is do not hand this out until the very end of the presentation. Because what will happen if you don't do that, you'll be talking, you're asking questions, you've got kids that are sitting there just reading, talking to each other. So that's one thing I think is important. Hand this book out at the end. A lot of times that will make it more interactive with you and the students. Just some general rules that I found to be beneficial when I go out and talk to the classrooms. We've been all over Putnam City, Edmond, Oklahoma City, just all over Oklahoma County. I can't say I've ever had any disciplinary issues. Our teachers are great to work with. A lot of times the students are kind of excited when you come in because you're not their teacher, the person they see every day, you're not their parent, and everyone's somewhat excited about a lawyer. Most of the questions tend to be about criminal and things like that, but they're always interested when a lawyer's coming. So generally they're decently attentive, but obviously there are going to be some situations that come up where you have a student, not necessarily as a problem student, but maybe it's doing things that are not conducive to the presentation, or they're sleeping, or they're talking, or something like that. So most of the times the teachers will take care of it. A lot of times they put the fear of God into them before you've come, so you're in pretty good standing there. A lot of times what I'll do is if there's a kid that's sleeping or they're doing something, I like to walk over right by them, and I'll walk up through the aisles and walk right next to them. That generally will take care of the problem. Sometimes if there's a kid that continues to talk or something, I'll say, you back there, you've been pretty talkative, you seem like you have an opinion. What do you think about this? What? So generally that seems to really take care of those problems. So, but Michael and Deneen really covered all of that. But what we really do is called On to Adulthood Education. It talks about the rights and responsibilities that kids have when they turn 18. Now, we start out and say, what changes when you turn 18? Well, of course, the most common stuff that we get is about, you can go to jail or criminal. Most of them have some experience about that. Some of them know stuff about family law, or I've heard that you can get married or things like that. So obviously we kind of start building on that. So sometimes I'll tell stories of things I've known or heard of kids that have gone to a juvenile center when they're 16 or 17 or things like that. So we say, well, what's the difference when you turn 18? Well, number one, it's on your permanent record. Now, with the internet, and I'm sure we're all familiar with OSCN, anybody can go in and type in your name and find out if you've been charged with a crime, when your next court date is, and what the disposition of it was. A lot of them are shocked then. Really? I can do that? Well, number one, I'd like to look at my friends and see if they've been in trouble. Number two, well, I don't want to be on there. So a lot of times they don't realize that this is public record. Also, whenever you're 18 years old on a job application, you have to disclose if you've been convicted of a felony a lot of times or things like that. We go through then at that point, what's the list of all the occupations that are barred from you even participating in if you've been convicted of a felony or some other crime. We go from that. So, okay, well, sometimes we'll explain the difference between felonies and misdemeanors and what rights and responsibilities comes with those distinctions. Well, a lot of times I'll ask them, if you want to be an airline pilot, things like that. What's going to happen if you get a driving under the influence charge or things like that? And a lot of them really are not sure or not even aware of a lot of times the consequences that come from those actions when they turn 18. They've got some idea, but a lot of times we have to emphasize that as far as, when you're 18 or 19, you're not thinking about when you're 32 or 33, that might as well be 80 years old to an 18 or 19-year-old. So you're trying to emphasize those consequences of don't let something you do when you're 18 or 19 years old dictate what you're able to do when you're 40. So that's one part we really try to hammer into them. I mean, a lot of them have a general idea of this, but sometimes adding in our own life experiences, talking about people we know, really has an added impact. And number one, we're not their teacher, just lecturing them. Now, if you do this, you're going to be in trouble. They say, hey, here's an outside independent person that's here. He seems like a fun guy. He's nice. He's personable. And, I think, maybe I'll listen to what he has to say a little bit more than what my principal says or my teacher says or things like that. Well, another common thing that we talk about, we say, what other rights and responsibilities come when you turn 18? Of course, you've got the criminal. People talk about some domestic things. But what a lot of times they fail to really talk about or even think about is leasing an apartment, applying for credit cards, buying a car, things like that are based in contract. Well, obviously, if you're a minor, you can't do all those things. But when you turn 18, I said, someone's going to view you the exact same way as me. We're both of age. Even though you're 18, we look at you as a high school kid and I'm an adult. Well, in the eyes of the law, we're the same when you sign a contract. I said, what happens when you enter into a contract with one of your friends for a 12 months lease, you're both on the lease, and the friend leaves? What happens? And invariably, a lot of times kids will say, well, we were splitting the rent, and since he's gone, I don't have to pay half the rent. Well, that's not the case anymore, unfortunately. So when you sign contracts for a lease, you try to buy a house, you apply for a credit card, you try to buy a car, those have consequences. And that kind of transitioned us into, we talk about credit and things like that. How does your credit affect you? And so we just talk about a lot of times when someone is 18, you think, man, I'd really like to buy a car. I really want that car, and the monthly payments are X amount, well, I can make them this month, and that's all I really care about. I want to show my friends this is an awesome car. We talk about what happens that next month when you can't make the payments. Someone takes that car back, you can't get to your job, and now you can't qualify to buy another car because your credit's bad. A lot of times I'll say, let's look at Johnny over here. If you lend Johnny $5, he doesn't pay back, are you going to lend Johnny any more money? No, of course not. Didn't pay back. Well, that's the same way banks, credit card companies, whoever it is, are going to look at you if you don't pay your debts or you can't pay it. They really don't care what's happened in your life. They're going to say, well, if you can't pay, I'm not going to lend you more money. And I say, think about if you want to buy a house, a car, or things like that. That's going to be a problem for you. I also go through a lot of times, what are some of the consequences of bad credit? Well, sometimes employers will look at your credit score. A lot of times also depends on the interest rate you're able to get. I talk about why do some people buy cars from certain dealerships and why do some people buy cars from other dealerships? Well, a lot of times it's because they can't get a good interest rate and you end up paying a lot more for what you're getting. We also go through and talk a lot about career advice, and as Michael talked about, you invariably get a lot of questions on what's it like to be a lawyer. I mean, it's just a natural transition. So, of course, I always tell them about it. Like Deneen said, that they always have questions about how much money you make, what type of car you drive. And I've always stolen Deneen's line on that a lot of times. Said, well, there's some lawyers that make more than your teacher and some that make less than your teacher. So we kind of stick to that, and that kind of quells that. But a lot of times they're like, what do you do, and what's your occupation? And I had this recently. There was a kid that asked me, they said, have you ever seen the show Breaking Bad? I said, I have. They said, well, what about that lawyer on there? Are there many guys like that in real life? It's just a guy that's just kind of an interesting character. I said, no, that's a television show. Let me tell you a little bit about what life is really like. And so generally they're interested in that. But a lot of times what we tell them on career advice is, today, a college education is equivalent to what might have been a high school education a long time ago. So obviously we emphasize education a lot. A lot of times we don't put it in those words though. And I'll tell you why. I had a friend that taught at Midwest City High School for a while ago. And he would tell me sometimes, he said, I used to say that same thing, but sometimes you're talking about kids and if their parents did not go to college themselves, I'm trying not to say, hey, your parents should have done this or things like that. So I try to put it into words, you need to do something past high school. You can't just stop here. Now, whether that's going to a 4-year school, which is great, we encourage that. Sometimes with cost and family issues, that's not possible. But you need to go on and do something. Right now, we have a lot of other occupations that pay well if you go to a career tech center or places like that. We also talk about what are ways that we can do to afford college. Because obviously we know now the cost of education is astronomical. We talk about how do we avoid student loans, which probably is advice that I could have taken as well. But how do we avoid that? Well, we go through options of what can we do? your basics, can I go to Rose State or a junior college or something like that to get those taken care of before I go on to school? Sure, absolutely. So those are the options that we explore with the kids a lot. One program that we've also really tried to emphasize, and Pam and I have talked about doing nothing but a program on this, is social media. Obviously, that is a huge issue. It's something even when I was in high school was not even on anyone's radar at all. And how much that's changing the landscape of schools, employment, and just life in general. What I've said, I knew a kid one time who would post things on Facebook, about, when they're partying and things like that. I knew that wasn't who it was. I said, if no one knew you except by your Facebook or what you posted on social media, what would they think of you? And I'm talking about not your friends, we're not trying to be cool, but when you go to look for a job, people are going to look for social media, what do you put on there? In fact, in the inner court I'm in, I listened to a defense attorney, an insurance defense attorney, said the first thing he did a lot of times when he had cases was look on Facebook and see what this person was saying. It's unbelievable the things that people, whether they're kids or adults, will say on there. They'll say, guess what, I'm about to get $1 million in this case because of these people, and we're just going to defraud them or cheat them or things like that. And so we go over the consequences. We say, employers can look at your social media now. What you say on social media is going to have a great impact on whether or not you can get a job. In fact, there are articles now on colleges, and a lot of college admissions are looking through Facebook and Twitter. You can sit, one time a kid said, well, I can set on myself on private. I said, there's always a way. If you put it out there, there's always a way. Don't ever put anything on social media that you would be comfortable with your mom reading, or that's you would feel comfortable with your employer reading. Don't use foul language. Don't talk about drug use or alcohol, things like that. Those are all really black marks. And the main thing is just saying, what you do today is going to impact what you are when you're 32, 33, or 34, or 35. And just kind of emphasizing that with them. So I really have a great time giving this program. The kids are always great, no matter where you go. I've had great success with the program, I think. We generally always will go over time. You never really have a lot of dead space because a lot of times you're talking, kids have questions as you go in, you talk about your stories. A lot of times the teachers will have questions for you too, and they like to incorporate that into future lesson plans and things like that. Typically when we go out and give this program, we go back several times because a lot of times teachers use us, they enjoy the program, so it's generally not a one-shot deal. We generally get plenty of times to do it, and it really is a lot of fun. So good luck to everyone, and I appreciate the time today.
I'm David Hopper. I'm a member of the Law-Related Education Committee. Been there, 15, 16 years, I guess I've been on that committee. My topic today is kind of unusual, I think. It's what works and what doesn't work in the classroom. I'll give you two basic rules, the way I see it. Number one, it depends on your preparation. You don't go in half-cocked. You don't go in thinking, I'll just wing this. I think Richard was talking a little bit about going in and having an interactive discussion with the students. Now, I've got to tell you, I lived with an elementary school teacher, still living with her, but she was an elementary school teacher for 34 years. And teachers are required by the school to prepare a lesson plan, and there's a good, solid reason for that. I remember going into her first grade class one day for a career day, and I basically told what I did, and I guess Darlene's gone. In addition to being asked how much do you make, I've been asked how many cases have you won? Now, I was not a trial attorney. I was working for the Employment Security Commission with their legal department doing bankruptcy work, but some kid asked me at one time, how many cases have you, I got the question, how much will you make, but how many cases have you won? But I ran out of soap in about 15 minutes in my wife's first grade class, and she was sitting at the back of the room kind of chuckling because she had kind of warned me about this. Don't go in unprepared. So advanced preparation, have a curriculum when you go in. Be prepared to know what you're going to do, especially the material you have in the folders that you were given today. Have curriculum, a class that you can lead the class through. The other thing I'll tell you is not only your advanced preparation, but be sure that you're working closely with the teacher or the school that you're going to be in. And I'll demonstrate that by telling you my worst experience in a classroom. It wasn't really in the classroom, it was in a large cafeteria with about 500 seniors going over the now that you're 18 booklet. I was called by the LRE office here, this was several years ago, and asked to kind of fill in for somebody at a large metropolitan high school. I won't even tell you which one it was. I agreed to do that. And they said, we're going to hand out, they want to distribute the young adult guide, and they want an attorney to go through the material with them. When I got there, I was given the name of a teacher that was setting this all up, and I said, well, where's this teacher? Well, she had something come up, and she's not here today. One of the coaches said all the kids, 500 seniors, are gathered in our atrium or commons, whatever they call it, room full of 500 seniors, and he had the boxes with my books on a little dolly, and he hauled them down there, and I said, well, pass them out. I pass them out before I do the presentation. But this particular presentation, again, the person that was supposed to be responsible from the school that setting up was not there. It was haphazard. The podium I was given was one of these little portable stands you can sit on top of a table, like if you go to a civic club or something, and maybe they have a microphone built into the podium. Well, a room that was bigger than this room, filled with 500 kids, the microphone the sound system didn't even reach all of them. So it was a disaster. My worst experience being in the classroom. So I say, be prepared in advance with your material. Know what you're going to say, know what you're going to do, and make sure you're in touch with the teacher or whatever person that you're in charge when you go into a classroom. One of the basic ground rules is don't ever let the teacher lead. The teacher needs to understand she's not going to take you in there, turn her class over to you or his class over to you, and then leave and do something else. Teacher needs to be advanced, and you'll be told advanced. We expect you to be there and be kind of backing us up a little bit. This program is, the committee started this. Michael told you a little bit about this. We began to realize that we have resources that the schools can use. The problem is a lot of the schools don't know about what resources the attorneys can provide. And the attorneys sometimes are at a loss as to what format, how do I do this? That's the whole point of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to give you the material. Hopefully then you can go to your local schools and say, I have a resource here. We can help you. As civics education becomes back into the curriculum, we have a lot of expertise we can give to the schools. And honestly, some attorneys are better at doing this than others. That's one of the reasons we're having training sessions, and hopefully people online will look at it. Learn the material, have a curriculum in hand, have a lesson plan in hand when you go in so you don't get caught short. I think there's a time for questions now.
Does anyone have a question? And we're going to use this microphone so we can pick it up for the taping purposes. I'm going to go over the contents of the book in just a moment. You've got to have at least one question. Okay.
Okay, I'll be that girl. I have done the Visitor from Outer Space with a 5th grade, I would say 5th grade class. It was 3 5th grade classes combined in a really large room and like a paper flip chart thing that I could write on, which was kind of hard to do because they didn't really have a working marker. It was very light. And so that would definitely be one of the communicate what does the area look like, because I am a big visual person and I like to know what to expect. And I was expecting a classroom with a chalkboard or a white, dry board or something. But my question would be, I really enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. I would totally agree with Donnie. I believe that a lot of kids, of the 5 rights that they gave up, one of them was invariably the right to counsel, and I thanked them for firing me. And then also the what was one of them? It was the peacefully assemble. That was a huge one, and so I did kind of the same thing. Well, how many of you guys go to church? How many of you go to the mall? How many of you play ball in the park after school? Oh, hands were up. Not anymore. Oh my gosh. So that was really fun. I also did number 4 on the activity, the optional activity about having the kids rank next to it which right went where. And then their teacher gave them some prize for their team who won, who got it all correct. And then I also did some research online and found like 10 multiple choice questions that I just asked the students about just kind of Bill of Rights and our nation's history in general, and it was built for their age group. My question is, I've never done the young adult guide. I've never done like teaching case law in the classroom. That would be great because I usually kind of think the younger kids and kind of instill that, especially with all the issues we have right now with the legislature and trying to get rid of social studies. But I also think it's really important when you get to the older kids, because a lot of times you've already lost them or they don't care and they're about to get out and they're just free. So I guess my question to Richard and Michael and anyone else who teaches on those subjects, would you mind a shadow at some point or something to that effect that we could just kind of come watch one of those presentations since we've never seen one?
I would do that and give you my materials and go to whatever school you want. I'm pretty dedicated to this program. Let me just say, the way it works for me a lot of the time is I tend to go to civics classes or to history classes. And the reason I do that is that it's much easier to put the material about legal work and the history of different case law into context. So, for example, when I went to Bartlesville recently, I talked to the teacher, the civics teacher, for some time to find out exactly what he was covering. Well, he was covering federalism. Now, federalism is something you wouldn't think would be very easy to put into a human context. Because, I mean, the way I looked at it was pretty simplistic. It was about states' rights and central government powers, if you want to say it that way. But then you start reading about the basic cases on federalism that came out during the early part of our country's history, and if you delve down into the people who were actually affected, it becomes something that you see can be made very, very relevant to students. So just give you an example of what I did. I took the case of Martin versus Hunter's lessee. And that's the case in which the state of Virginia had decided that they would confiscate the property, the real estate, of loyalists, of people who were Tories, who had not joined in the American Revolution and had supported the non-patriot cause. And it did so. The state confiscated this property. Well, that sounds like a pretty dry sort of thing. But if you talk about it in today's context, that what if you had a family farm? And what if the state all of a sudden decided that you were in a class of people that it didn't prefer? And you could think of a number of those. And what I used was the example of an illegal alien, someone who had perhaps come from Mexico. I think I said it was the niece of someone who had forgotten to get her papers before they came over when she was a little kid. But the law was in Oklahoma that she couldn't own land because she was an illegal alien. What would happen to this person? So we took this very upfront, dry case of Martin versus Hunter's lessee and turned it into something that could happen today. I called the presentation Federalism Matters. It actually matters. And of course, the way it ended up was the power of the central government in that case prevailed, and the Loyalist family got their property back, basically. But if you take it down to the level that children, really, even 10th grade children might understand, and turn it into something relevant to them, it's actually a little bit easier to do than you might think, so long as you look at the underlying facts of the case. But the critical thing to me was that I was able to do this in context because that's what the teacher was teaching at the time. And so it both supported his goals, and it also was something they already knew a little about, but didn't have a feel for how it really came down to hurt or help people. That's where I take it. And when I do that, when I've done that, I've found it to be very successful. And so, yeah, sure, I'd love for anyone to join me the next time I get to do it. I actually can teach case law in a way that is pretty exciting, I think.
One thing too, I wanted to tell you on the young adult guide too. We are going to be working this summer on putting some lesson plans together. That's my goal this summer because it's really never had a lesson plan. And a lot of people who go out do their own thing, like Mike does. But if you're just brand new at this and you're not sure what you want to do yet, then we are going to try to make that a little easier for you all, and probably put together maybe 3 or 4 lesson plans that will take parts of those books and do that. And so as soon as we do that and Jane approves it and make sure that it's going to fit in with the curriculum and everything, and then we'll put those out there too. The second thing I want to say too is you can always shadow one of our speakers too. If you can give me your information, we'll be glad to do that. And then also always call the teacher first, because I have had many times a teacher will send us a form and they'll say, okay, this is what we want to talk about. But when the speaker actually calls the teacher to say, oh no, I've changed my mind, I decided this is what I want to do. So instead of walking into the classroom and them saying, oh, by the way, this is what we want to talk about, at least you're not surprised by that. And don't be scared about all these horror stories, not all of them, but a few that you're hearing about walking in and having 500 kids. That has happened, I will admit. But we really try not to do that. And so if we have a teacher who comes and says, well, we've got 4 classrooms that we want to do, I always encourage them, let's break that up. Maybe we can just do 2 here and 2 there, so you might do 2 sessions back to back, or or if you don't have time, do 2 and have someone else do another 2. That way you're not speaking to 200 or 300 kids, because I feel like the smaller classes, is where you get the one-on-one. And so I know that if you're going out to a different county, you're not going to have someone like me working with the teacher, kind of a middle person to do that. But you can always ask the teacher that. Just say, I would prefer to break that up if we can, if we've got the time to do that. You can always ask them if they can do that.
And I just want to add another point too. When you're researching your school, or talking to the teacher and stuff, I would also research the school from the perspective of look at their website. What have they been up to? What have they been doing as a school? And I'm going to say that because I did that to find out where the school was located. It was somewhere in Oklahoma City. I don't have a clue, and I needed to map it. And they had pictures that would flash on the front page, and some of them were about following the tornadoes and more, and some different benefit things that they had done, and just some efforts that the school had done that they had the kids be involved in. And I actually live in Moore, and so I thought, well, something to acknowledge their efforts. I mean, they're 5th graders, and the acknowledgement is, So I called the Chamber of Commerce, or the city, I should say, and they rounded up. I was expecting 90, we ended up having about 80 kids, and they got City of Moore pins, because they didn't have a lot of other stuff, because they'd given so many away to all these different volunteers. And so they gave me a bag full of just 10 at a time wrapped up pins, and some of them were disassembled, and one of the ladies stayed up late at night putting them together and making sure that they were all ready for these kids, that they would have something to give them. And I made the mistake of trying to get good rapport and gave it to them at the beginning, which all they did was sit there and click and try to draw on stuff. So that, save it if it's a pin. But yeah, I mean, look at their website, see what things they've been up to, what interests that they've done as a school, and see if there's a way that you can connect to them and kind of build instant rapport in that regard. And I think it helped them, and I think it made the teacher happy to have something brought in, but it was also kind of a nice thank you from me, even though I really didn't have anything to do with it other than making a couple phone calls. But we really appreciated it, and just to see how excited they were to get an ink pen. But just something like that. So look at their website, see what they've been up to, if there's something you can relate to, or you can ask them questions about, and get them interested about it.
Well, let's open up our packets and go through why we put everything in here that you have today. In the center section, past the agenda, there is a staple packet that says lesson correlations. And I sought the experts that are still in the field, and I said, let's look at the 6 lessons, and I'll tell you a little bit more about those in a minute. But let's look at them so when you're talking to the teacher, you can say, this is how it will fit into your lesson plans. We have Common Core on here as well as state social studies standards. And the C3 standards are for career, college, and citizenship. So everything we do automatically goes into citizenship, whether it's at the pre-K level or all the way up to your seniors in high school. So for the lessons in this packet, you have this information, and we're going to be doing this with more lessons and posting it on our website. All of this information in this packet, I'll show you in just a little bit, is on our website, our new page. And these lessons will be under a code. Yes, sir?
Jane, you might explain your acronym here. PALS, what does PALS stand for?
I knew you were going to do that, and my brain is telling me right now I can't tell you that.
CS means Common Core Standards?
Core standards, yes. The PALS is through the State Department, their acronym on getting it to the state standards. And I apologize, I should know that off the top of my head. So we have concentrated on these 6 lessons. Yes? We are under okbar.org. And when you get to the main page, at the very top, it will say public. There'll be a screen you can pull down, and Brandon will help me get that online in just a second, and we'll show you how to do this. And then find law-related education. Great question, I'm sorry. I should have said that up front. So for the lessons that you will leave here with today and on this page, we have all the correlations ready for you to hand over to the teacher. You also find in this section the booklet that the committee spent many meetings and hours the implementation guide. The entire guide is posted online as well, and I'll come back to this in just a minute. If you don't mind just pulling that up, and then we'll just actually show them how to get there. Let's go to the right-hand side. We have the brochure that we've been discussing this morning. You're 18 now. It's your responsibility. We refer to it as the Young Adult Guides. We can get you as many copies as you need. We'd like a little lead time mailing them out. We can already have them sent directly to the classroom or send them to your office, wherever you'd like it. If you're local, you can pick it up at the Tulsa County Bar, the Oklahoma County Bar, and here at the Bar Center. And Deborah will get those for you, my assistant Deborah Jenkins, who checked you in. The other free resource material that is very important to put in the hands of our students, 5th grade and 8th grade in particular, is the Pocket Constitution. And again, you can have as many of those as you need. Just give us some lead time. The form is online, but really just email Deborah or myself or the county bars in Tulsa and Oklahoma County, and they will have them ready for you to take to the classrooms. The 3 lessons on the left-hand side. A visitor from outer space, we've gone over that today. The candy bar contracts, because we're trying to work with the younger students. We don't get as many requests really below 4th grade, but we do get occasional requests, so that's a very popular one at the younger ages. And no vehicles in the park. Those were 3 that of the many lessons that we have available for you, but the ones we wanted to start with on this project. And I can help you walk through those and some suggestions for teaching as well. Yes, sir?
Jane, the other lesson plans are on the website?
They are, but not on this one particular page. On this particular page, what we're calling resources page, it's going to be these 6 at this time. Our goal is to add to it, but we have many others available on our website in another area. Great question. On the right-hand side, we have been working with Justice Sandra Day O'Connor's project. This is going on 3 years this May. And I have pulled off what is called a scope and sequence, just so that you can get an idea. They are at icivics.org if you Google it. It will take you straight here. The scope and sequence will just give you a better idea and understanding of the different divisions that they're addressing. This is an all-day training for our teachers. We give some partial day trainings, but it's a wonderful resource for materials that just takes you step by step through the program, and we've chosen 3 lessons from the iCivics. All of this is available online. The first lesson in your packet, in my packet, is Citizen Me, and this packet starts with a teacher's guide, and it takes you step by step for how you could implement this lesson in a classroom with the assistance of a teacher. By no means are you going to run this packet off for the entire class. You may pick and choose, and that will be the teacher's input with you on which components and where they are in their studies. But if you'll flip through this lesson with me, there's a little manipulative triangle starting about where I am as far as where's my home, where's my school, what's my city. For rural kids, their school and their district and their home, everything is the same on that. But for your larger metropolitan areas, those will be a little bit different. It talks about rights and sources and responsibility. This is a great manipulative that you can actually leave with them to do or start while they're there. There is a PowerPoint available for this lesson as we go through it. The answer guide is here for you to see. Citizen Me, the story, and notice it says reading page 1, and then there is a page 2. That's a front and back handout that you could take in with you. And then there's a little summation booklet that could be run about Ted's Big Day, what's studied in the reading assignment. So teachers will be able to incorporate this into their reading minutes as well. And this gives them a little booklet to take home at the elementary level. The iCivics program online will tell you it's for middle school and high school, but I promise you any 4th or 5th grader can do these programs that are iCivics. So there's a great lesson for you to walk in. You're not going to do everything that's in this packet, but you're going to pick and choose with the teacher. The second lesson, cleverly, is named Constitution Day lesson. Constitution Day is mandated for schools to teach a lesson, so here's one. We have a whole Constitution Day section to our web page that you can go to, but again, this, if you want to walk through this one very quickly, it gives you a worksheet if you need it. These can be put onto their whiteboards now. The teachers can have this and just pull it up online and go, and you decide what you want to do with the kids. Also, the teachers use some of these pages. If they have a substitute teacher folder, they will put it in here because you've come in and taught the lesson, and this will reinforce it if ever that teacher is out of pocket for any reason, something has happened. So there's all kinds of things that you can do for Constitution Day, and this is targeted for upper, elementary, and middle school students. And then the third and final lesson we've included has an interesting title, Why Do We Have a House and Senate Anyway? When I first saw this lesson, I was outraged. I go, what? You're pitting the students against the teachers. It's all about cell phones. I've actually used the information from this packet without ever Xeroxing any page of it, and working with at-risk middle schoolers in Norman, Oklahoma from all 4 feeder schools. And we had, imagine this, cell phone issues. How interesting is that? But we walked through the ideas laid out, and I can show you how to do that with your kids. But the purpose of the lesson is to teach them a large group of people, meaning the student body outnumbered us as the instructors and the mentors there, and then the smaller group being the Senate. And at the end, it was the aha moment when I said, how is this if we were talking about going to the Capitol, how would these groups be represented? And the kids picked up on it immediately because they've had the foundation in their classrooms. But your teacher's going to tell you exactly what they've studied. But this is really a positive lesson, but I'll tell you, the first time I saw it, I wasn't that impressed, but as I walked through it and I worked with these at-risk kids who pick it up 5 times faster, they might be at risk, but I tell you what, they're streetwise, and they picked up very, very quickly on this. So that is the third lesson from the iCivics series. Again, being a classroom teacher, I can help you with ideas, classroom techniques, things that you can use. For example, we vote with our feet. How many want to give up your cell phone when you walked into this meeting? If you want to, if you highly agree, stand against this wall. If you're not really sure, stand in the middle of the room. And if you agree that you want to give up your right to have your cell phone in your pocket, then stand against this wall. Then we do a little bit of discussion and turn it over to the kids. and then let them move, let them change their minds. And it finally came down to about the fourth day that we were talking about, let's vote, let's let the kids vote. By the fourth time, they said, let's just give these up. That way we can have our free time, we can have our snacks, and there's not going to be a problem with someone taking away from the group. They figured it out. If I give up that responsibility, I get it back at the end of the day. And of course, we needed them during study time because everything that they were researching was on their phone. So it's a really fun lesson. Now, I promised we would get back to the implementation handbook. And if you will open that with me. This is not just for attorneys, it's for educators in your community, your judges in your county, and just for local people that might be retired and be that wonderful person to help you with the kids when you're in that classroom. You're the authority when you're in that classroom. But you might want to get an assistant to come with you and incorporate all the people that they've got. If they've got a mentor system set up in that school, get that group involved as well for citizenship reasons. As we go through the book, there's roles of the participants. I know as a classroom teacher, one time I got sideswiped with, I had one section of 3 fifth grade classes, and the other teachers didn't want to be bothered with it, so I just went ahead and had the speaker come on in, and at the very last second, suddenly, they wanted to be part of my group. I know my face was purple red. I know there was no doubt about it, and I said, but they're not prepared. We prepared for this. That was the one and only time that ever happened. But it does happen. They brought the kids in, and yes, they left the room. I immediately called for the principal and said, well, since they're not going to be responsible for their students, you come in and be with me. It didn't happen ever again. It was very surprising. Wonderful ladies, but they stepped over the line that day thinking that they would just join in without being prepared. And it was very obvious my kids were already seated. I had to take them out of my classroom into the media center, and I set them front and center because that's the group that was ready to hear that speaker. We were ready for it. So if that should happen to you, it's give yourself permission to say, I had prepared for a small group, and we need to reschedule. It could happen. And substitute teachers, that could happen where someone said, take your kids down and join in because they have a speaker. Not that they're not welcome, but they're not prepared for the speaker, and we really want to have the kids prepared. The last, on page 5, it talks about a successful program. We need to start now in preparation for the next school year, deciding who those local people are going to be and get involved and get into that classroom. Your windows of opportunity and mandates. In September, Constitution Day, that's a great way to say, I would like to work with a teacher and get in, and it's a mandated teaching assignment. And I've got some great materials and resources I can tell you about as you leave that classroom situation. Then Freedom Week is the week of Veterans Day in November the 11th. It will always be that week. And they have to document to the State Department of Education what they've done as a school. So it could be a very involved, it could be getting them ready for an assembly at the end of the week, depending what direction that school takes. But you could certainly help get in the door by helping them, giving them some of these activities that we have here today. And then your last opportunity is to help promote every fall our law day. And if you've read your journal and read some of the wonderful essays that have been written, a teacher that I encouraged this year from Edmond to have his students, his AP class, write some of the essays actually won. And he said it was so hard to evaluate because of their passion for what they were writing, the topic. And we had these lessons posted online with, again, the correlations that how it would work into their classroom assignments. So we have started with baby steps on these 6 lessons. There are many, many more out there. There are 19 games at the iCivics website that the kids play. Don't tell them it's educational. Just let them play the games. There's a great one on immigration. And on voting, of course, that's the direction that we'll be going this fall with an election year. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be preparing behind the scenes. Deborah has access to many, many, many lesson plans posted within our website. But right now, where do I need to be to pull that up, Brandon?
I'll do it for you.
Okay. So we're going to go out on the website and just go to the BAR's front page, web page. And Brandon, thank you so much for videotaping today. Our goal is that you can take this tape and take the segments out of it that you would like, and you can actually have a 1-hour meeting and get everything done you need to get done. And I'll step out of the way. So he's gone to the front page and then gone up to the public at the top, and then down at the bottom, law-related education. And if you scroll down just a little bit from our banners, this is a great 18-year-old guide. Jennifer did a great job with this video, and you can see it's about 3 minutes. Talking about the young adult guide, and then as you scroll down past our aims and objectives, and by the way, this is our 25th year to have law-related education through the Bar Center. You're going to go down to, let me find it in the menu here on the right-hand side, and the menu is on the right-hand page of everything you click open. We're going to go down to programs, first of all. We've got resources and Freedom Week we'll come back to. But under programs, if you go down to attorneys in the classroom, and it should be, I'm looking here. Well, lawyers, I'm sorry. Yes. Well, we've had for years lawyers in the classroom where teachers requested an attorney, and now we're taking it a different direction and going out to the classrooms. So, might have to get Deborah's help here on this. Keep going down to where it says attorneys. Okay, so this is our new area. This is public at this point. But let's say we want to get to the resource page at the very bottom. This is where it becomes, you've got to have a code. This part that you'll see comes up, anyone in the public can pull it up, but you're going to have a username. And very cleverly, your username is LRE. Okay? And can anyone guess the password? You're going into a classroom. So that's what you need to know, is the word classroom. And I'm not sure if username is case sensitive. I don't think it is. And this is our brand new, you're the first group to get to see it. This is our brand new page. And the lessons, there's the implementation handbook we're telling you about. So all of this you have accessible 24/7. The 3 lessons that we chose under iCivics, and we chose those lessons because of different age levels, the lower level, the upper elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school, especially the one about the cell phones. And then traditional lessons that were selected for this training, and to start everyone off, your visitor from outer space, candy bar contracts. And by the way, on candy bar contracts, please check with the teacher on school policy about bringing any type of candy into that classroom. You might get special permission for this lesson to bring it in, but make sure before you take anything that's edible into a classroom. And then no vehicles in the park. Your lesson correlations are down here, and that will change as we start bringing more lessons online. But again, you had to go into the code, which is, tell me, LRE and what? Classroom. Okay. And that's how you're going to be able to access these lessons. Now, of course, the iCivics are available online at iCivics.org with other lessons that you can get to, but we're taking the steps of these 6 lessons, and then we'll add to them and have correlations with them to the State Department standards and the Common Core. All right. Will you take us back to the page, one page, please?
This page?
No, back to the, to where it starts LRE. Just,
I'm going to go back.
That'd be fine. Excuse my yell. Okay. Down in the menu on the right-hand side, Okay, this menu will be on every page, and we change out some of the icons that are above it. There's some pictures from our spring conference that we have on March the 29th. Now, our newsletters are posted online. You can go, if you click through there, we now have 2 hard copies that go out to about 5,300 teachers' names. It's not just going out in general to any post office box, but we've got them all posted online now, so we're very proud of that. Then if you'll go back to the back page one more. Okay, the resources, if you'll touch that one. We already have some lesson plans from another source, Foundations of Democracy, our free materials here. You can go online and get your 18-year-old guide in English and in Spanish. However, in Spanish, we don't have the one on social media translated. It's in the works right now. Then lending resources. We have We have mock trials, K to 12. We've got a lot of nursery rhymes. There are many things that we can send to your teachers, State versus Bean, the Big Bad Wolf. On down, we've got some links to social studies resources at the State Department. We are also linked at the State Department as a resource page for Freedom Week activities and citizenship education. And then the other page, Brandon, that will show them are the, okay, we're good. Thank you.
Back to the homepage.
Back to our section of the newsletter. Okay, Freedom Week, if you'll click that. Very bottom, Freedom Week. Okay. Deborah has been updating some things on this. We're celebrating for September 16th of this year. And if you'll scroll down a little bit, we have permission from one of our teachers out in the Seattle area that has done some great crossword puzzles, and he has allowed us to post this on our page. And the Celebrate His Freedom Week is already posted there. And if you scroll down just a little bit, there's a lesson under activities called Spot Citizenship Relay Game. I work with Jen Miller in Texas. They do a lot of relay games for the lower elementary and middle school kids. And what I did is I took all of the questions from the, it's not the newest version, but the citizenship test. And we've got links here, and the kids can play a game, and it's out there for the teachers to use, and that's a great thing to take into teachers and just say, here's a game that we've created, it's on our webpage, and you can use it. And it's 100 questions, and the kids get really involved in that. And then as you go on down, there's other Constitution facts, and these change a little bit as far as the links. They stay, we make sure they stay an active link, and of course the State Department of Education. Kelly Curtright is our Director of Social Studies at the State Department, and he is constantly sending people. He serves on our LRE committee as well. So this is where we are at this point, and with your assistance in telling us what the request of the teachers are, working on the 18-year-old guide lessons and things that we are developing, it will be a work in progress. So I just kind of wanted to showcase what we do have out there, and thank you, Brandon, for your help.
Thank you so much all for coming. I did training for lawyers in the classroom several years ago. I went to a training that Pam did in Oklahoma County, and they have such a good program. And in putting all of this together, we thought, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Let's take what we've already got and augment it and complement it and get our groups of people in here so that they can see that we've already got something in place in our bigger counties, and let's try to take it out to our smaller counties. So we so much appreciate all of you coming out today, and encourage you to go out to our schools. And I was listening to what Mike said about taking the lesson to that he had and adapting it to the classroom. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges, letting the teachers know that when we're offering them our help, we're not trying to make their life more difficult. We're trying to make it easier and to augment what they're presenting to their students, and to let them know that we have a level of expertise that we can impart some knowledge that they might not have, some expertise that they might not have, and be able to answer questions that might be outside their area of expertise. So I definitely appreciate all you do, and I so appreciate Deborah and Jane, because they are constantly working. They are always on top of everything. Every time we come in, we found something new. We've got some other place for us to go. We've got some new resources for everybody to use. So I am so appreciative of their efforts and the time that they put in every day to make sure that our Law-Related Education Committee is really doing what it's intended to do. So thank you so much for all being here. I appreciate it.
Judge Lumpkin, would you like to say something to our group? Serving on our committee for a number of years, if not from the beginning.
Just pleased that you took the time, and hopefully you'll visit with other members and try to expand the program, because it's so important to grab a hold of those young people at the earliest possible age and let them know how our system and our government works, and how important the law is in everything that they do as far as their individual freedom. So just thank you for your willingness to take the time to be a part of this.
Thank you, Judge Lumpkin. And Kelly Curtright, were your ears burning, because I was mentioning you earlier. I'm not sure when you walked in. Kelly is our State Department of Education curriculum specialist in social studies and other things, but I just know social studies. And if you'd like to say something, and a member of our committee.
Yes. I'm glad that you all are here, and we do look forward to this program growing and developing because our students need to understand that, one, not only the system, but also you all bring a perspective into the classroom of actually doing the work of law and government on a daily basis. And there are, as you all know, that there's careers available in all kinds of ways touching on the law, and your example to them of being in there talking with them may be the spark that sends them in a direction that they haven't even been thinking of. And so whatever we can do from the State Department side of things to help this, advertise it, help arrange meetings or whatever, we are glad to do so. Jane, I'll let you have it back.
Are there any final questions? Well, we want to invite you to join us for lunch, and we'll go out the double doors and go through the line. And Ted's is catering today, so if there's something not there, ask us, and we'll see if we can find it for you. And we'll come back through these doors and sit at our tables.